have 9 of us on, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started, and then I'll just let people on if they show up later. So go ahead. So first, I'm just going to welcome you guys to today's video. As you know, we do record these things, so it'll be available on our website later. So you can turn your video on or turn it off if you want. By leaving it on, it just implies the consent that it's okay for us to use your picture on the recording. If you don't want your image shared, then please, you can always turn that off. Also, I wanted to, I think everyone has it, but your name appears on your screen there. So you might want to change it to just your first name or a nickname if you like, just if that's for your protection of privacy. So if you need to change that, you would just hit the little blue dot on the top where the little dots are, that you can change your name there if you'd like. We ask that you mute yourself while other people are talking so that the background noise doesn't interfere with their conversation. And the other suggestion is that you put it on speaker mode. If you hit the little speaker view up on the top corner, that'll keep whoever's speaking as the big picture in the middle, if that's what you would like. The other thing is the chat box. The chat box appears at the bottom, so if you have any questions or comments during, you can go ahead and just type those in the chat box there. There will be some screen sharing. So the first thing we're going to do with the screen sharing is let you know about our upcoming events. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen in just a moment. Let me just change that. We were talking about technical difficulties, weren't we? Yes. And well, here's where I am not Madonna. And I did not introduce myself either. So I do want to, I'm Michelle Fernandez, and I am the Events and Fundraiser Manager at Hemophilia Foundation of Oregon, soon to be Pacific Northwest Bleeding Disorders. So this is my second Zoom call that I am leading, so bear with me on some of these things here. And the screen sharing is going to be one of them. I have it here, but it's not letting me bring it up. So let me try this again. There it is. Okay, so what's up here now is the Thursday nights at 7. These are what we're going to be continuing doing through June, July, and we have the first week in August, and then we'll go from there. So we have tonight we have with HTC and PAP tonight talking about COVID, and then after that next week will be our virtual campfire, which is always a lot of fun. So if you haven't been in on one of those, you might want to put on that one for a good time. In July we have bunch of other things coming up. So we'll have different things with different people coming up throughout the week, always ending with our campfire. So our Connect that is there, and it's available on our website, or if you wanted to take a screenshot, there's that information. So that was the other thing. The other thing that we do is Tuesdays at 2. I don't know if anybody has been doing those, but our last one is going to be next Thursday. No, we have 2 more, but next Thursday we are doing, oh, what are we doing? Sorry, I'm trying to figure this at the same time. Not all my screens went on there. So we are doing cinnamon rolls. So Nancy Durbin is going to be helping us do some baking. So showing how baking and doing some core exercises at the same time. She's working on those. So she has cinnamon rolls. So we have that also went out on an email. We will also have that on our website for the recipe if you wanted that, so you can get the stuff you needed ahead of time. So that should be a lot of fun to do that. So that we have on Tuesday, and I don't have that screen on my thing. I thought I did, so I'm just going to tell you about that and leave that one there. So that was the other thing that we had going on during the week. There's Tuesdays, the Tuesdays at 2, we only have 2 left. And then the PTs are going to be taking a break for the summer, so we won't have them doing that. But that's been a lot of fun. So really glad that they were able to do that with us. But all of those are recorded and are available on our website if you wanted to go back and do any of those kind of things. We always want to share, this is going to be Madonna's information for how to get in contact with us. She is on vacation this week, but she gets back tomorrow. We are working from home, so those are the email addresses or her cell phone number to get in touch with somebody if you needed anything from the office. And I think you guys all have that information already. So those are the few things that I had to share with you guys. So that was really it. If you're just going to, we had that going on. We had already recognized all of our graduates, so I don't have any pictures to show this time, but always a congratulations to them. I know our school just held their actual graduations the last few days, so we had a couple stop by graduates that came by just to let us take a picture real quick, so that's always fun. But so yeah, so that's what we have going on right now. I will come back later and talk to you about some of the changes that we have as far as what's going virtual, some of our events that we're hosting. But in the meantime, I will turn it over to Dr. Christina Haley, who's going to go over some COVID stuff and going back to work.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. So again, I'm Christina Haley. I'm one of the pediatric hematologists here at the Hemophilia Center, and then the medical director for the Hemophilia Center. So just going to talk a little bit about some things that are going on at the center, just briefly, and kind of an update of where we are in the COVID-19 pandemic response for the Hemophilia Center. I think first I wanted to just start. I was at the hospital on Tuesday for some in-person clinic visits, and had to walk through the hospital for the first time in a while. It's mostly I've just been in clinic, and OHSU is very different than it normally is right now, and everybody's wearing masks, and there's checkpoints at all the entrances to screen for symptoms and to provide masks to all the individuals who are coming in, and so there's pretty extensive checks to make sure everybody's safe. But I also had a moment where I was thinking about the last time the world kind of experienced a pandemic like this in like the 1918s, and how grateful I am that even though it's really awful to be in the midst of a pandemic, that I'm grateful it's not 1918. And I don't know how they coordinated and figured it out and like managed to like get things done. There was no Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and anything. How did they communicate with one another? And then also, what did they do all day in their quarantine? So anyways, it was just a good moment to be grateful for modern day medicine. So, and then other things, I think just a moment of gratitude to all of the Hemophilia Center staff who have all adapted very rapidly to pretty significant change in their daily lives as far as their work environment. So we still have pretty much everybody working from home and doing their work from home and communicating. We do lots of virtual meetings, as I'm sure all of you are doing, and find ways to communicate with one another. And then I think just also some gratitude to all the patients and families who are putting up with us as we make lots of changes and change our schedules. And I think some people may have had their appointments rescheduled a few times and gone back and forth from virtual to not and back and forth. So I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to everybody for some flexibility as we learn about new things. We just had OHSU just switched our platform for virtual visits to a different platform, and so we all kind of adapted to that. So you might get phone calls if you have appointments coming up about a different platform. So for what's happening right now, we are, like I said, the hospital has made some pretty strict requirements about visitation policies. So how many people can accompany individuals to the to clinic appointments, and those are changing fairly rapidly. So when we call for appointments, if you're coming in to be seen, then we'll let you know. Masks are required at OHSU, and we've decided part of the clinic space modeling is to maintain 6 feet of physical distance as much as possible. And so that limits how many people can be in the waiting rooms or how many clinic rooms can be used at one time, and really affects especially our comprehensive care clinics, because we can't have all of our physical therapy, social work, nursing, physicians, pharmacy, all be in the same workroom at once. And then also coming in and out of rooms, we felt like increased exposure to everybody, even when masks are being worn. So we've decided that for the summer, we're going to keep all comprehensive clinic visits virtual, and then reassess towards the end of August to see where we're at and how things are going. But we also felt like that made it a little bit easier, so we weren't scheduling a bunch of appointments in July as in person and then having to ultimately change them back to virtual if things changed in the clinical space. So that's our plan for comprehensive clinics. We're open for doing more urgent or kind of as needed visits for bleeding events or other things. We're doing some Heme Libra initiations, things like that, that are more one person, one provider visits where we can maintain good physical distancing if we need to. And our physical therapists are doing assessments as well, but trying to keep, again, if you need to be seen by the physical therapist and your provider, that while we may be used to all come in at one time, which maybe is overwhelming, but we like to do that, to have everybody come in all at the same time. We're trying to just do one person at a time and then communicate with one another a little bit separately so that we can decrease exposures. I think we're also still, of course, always available for phone consultation, and it's actually even sometimes easier now with our accessibility with video visits. I think, we'd spent a lot of time talking with patients and families from all over the state and trying to figure out what a bruise looked like or what a bleed looked like over the phone. And now we can kind of easily convert that to a quick video visit if we need to, and that makes it a little bit easier and you don't have to travel. So please keep calling if you need us, and we're here to help. I think the other thing I just wanted to talk briefly about is something I've been thinking a lot about vigilance fatigue, which I don't know if that's like an official term, but something I've been thinking a lot about in this time of the pandemic that I feel at least a constant, like, did I wash my hands long enough? Where did I remember to bring my mask? What did I touch on my way, like from like getting my mail back to my house, or and what news media is coming into me? What do I need to kind of go through to see what information and distill it down and see how it applies to my life? And I think that is really exhausting. And we, as evidenced by the increased number of cases in Oregon over the last few weeks, I think we still have to be vigilant. And so it's a matter of trying to figure out how do we balance that, and just want to encourage people to maybe take turns in your family. Somebody else can maybe be the captain of vigilance for the day, or getting outside is a nice way to escape some of that vigilance, leaving your screens behind. And I think just being patient with ourselves and with one another and kind of with our circumstances is like really critical to kind of getting through these rough times. And then I think it's important that we keep on staying healthy. And so, like, again, call us if you need us, get your medications from either your pharmacy or from our pharmacy, wherever you get your medicines. Participate in safe activities, connect with people as you can and as feels safe. And then thinking about how do we just continue to keep our spaces safe with good hand washing and wearing face masks as needed. And then the last thing I wanted to just quickly say, because I think it's interesting, I was just on this right before this on a call with a bunch of hematologists from OHSU, And there was a woman presenting to us who's going to be presenting in a national meeting in a couple weeks, and about her experiences in Boston with COVID-19 and hematology. She's a hematologist there. And first I was awestruck by her remarking that they were talking about their first 210 patients with COVID in their hospital. And currently OHSU has like 5 patients in the hospital with COVID. And so just like thinking about how differently states are affected. And then also that there's, it kind of struck me about how kind of my comfort zone as a hematologist is to be like in the experience or treating patients and trying to figure out, like, I'm in this situation, what am I going to do? How am I going to help this person? What's my therapy? What do I see in front of me that helps me understand the disease process that's going on? And with COVID-19 in Oregon, we've been so fortunate to have so few cases for the most part that we as providers aren't having that experiences, and we're learning from our colleagues in different states that have been more greatly or more significantly affected. And so I was thinking about the like kind of how the only thing that I can do or we can do is to keep each other safe, and to because I'm not treating this disease. We aren't seeing this a lot here. And so what can I do is to like sit still and wash my hands and wear a mask. And that feels very like kind of confusing, but I think it's remembering that those are really active things and a good way to participate and help people out. So that's all I had to say. I'm happy to take any questions or if anybody has any other comments or thoughts.
So Christine, I had a question. Are you guys requiring COVID tests before you're seen over there?
Right now, there isn't a requirement for COVID testing for appointments. Everybody is screened for symptoms on their, like when you like you park your car and then you go into the lobby entrance before you like get anywhere. You have to like say if you've had a fever, if you've had any cough or respiratory symptoms, if you've been in contact with anybody who's been COVID positive, and if you've had a test recently, so that way they can look to make sure if you've had a test, has it like popped up positive or something nobody knew or something like that, so they don't, we're careful about that. And then you're required to wear a mask as soon as you, like if you don't bring one with you, you're given a mask to wear, so that everybody's wearing a mask. For certain anesthesia procedures, there's a requirement for COVID testing prior to that, but for just regular clinic visits, no.
And the type of mask that you're required to wear, is it like cloth masks work, or does it have to be a certain level?
Yeah, no, for the patients, it's cloth mask and just whatever you have from home. It just has to be some face covering. So it can be a bandana, it can be anything. And there are the masks that they have for patients, if you don't have your own, then they're not fluid rated, which is the ones that we wear for like in the operating room, or the ones that we're given as healthcare providers. They're good masks to wear. And I think what the data seems to show is that if everybody's wearing a mask, then like you're preventing your stuff from going everywhere, and then if everybody's preventing their aerosols from, or their aerosolized stuff from going places, then we'll all keep our germs to ourselves.
I had another question on the test. Would that cause nosebleeds?
That's a good question. Potentially, we've been, since we work, like I work in the clinic for pediatric hematology and oncology, so we see a lot of patients who have really low platelet counts, and so have like kind of an acquired bleeding disorder, and they've been getting more tests than I would say the patients that we're seeing with congenital or inherited bleeding disorders, because they have more surgical procedures. And even when their platelet counts are really low, we haven't seen a lot of nosebleeds, but I think it would be reasonable if for some reason you needed a COVID test, because you got exposed or you were sick or had symptoms, that you should anticipate that you might get a nosebleed.
Dominic
It goes right up in there.
a couple appointments, and I don't remember if it was the ENT doctor who was like, they called and said he had to have a COVID test before we came up there. And then, so we were talking about it, and then that came up, well, do I treat for a bloody nose? Do I use it? I said, well, I guess you can use your nose spray. So
Yeah, I think like it depends a little bit on like, I think we're like also in a difficult time of like allergy season, and so everybody's noses are like irritated anyways, and then you stick a giant Q-tip up there, things are bound to bleed.
just a little scrape there, huh?
Yeah, I think they try to be really gentle, but they also, you need to get a good sample, so it's like a little bit of balance.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Just out of curiosity, what is the hospitals and the kind of process right now for inpatient stays for little ones?
Right now, oh goodness. So as far as like people, I think I don't want to say it wrong, but I'm pretty sure they just changed it to, you can, for under 18, you can have 2 parents accompany for in the hospital, but I would have to double check on that one because it's changed, like it just changed recently. I think that's the latest, is that 2 parents are allowed to accompany. And right now, if it's like a hospital stay for a unrelated to like an acute illness, that they aren't doing COVID testing standardly. But again, if you're having a surgical procedure, for the most part, they are doing it prior to admission. And the timing is pretty tight. Like you have to have it within, I think it's within 48 hours of admission for your surgical procedure.
Perfect, thank you. And I'm
Yeah.
just curious, is anyone really looking at COVID and then how it affects our community?
Yeah, it's a really good question. When I was just on that call with that other hematologist in Boston, I was going to ask her if they've seen anybody with a bleeding disorder and COVID, and unfortunately we just kind of ran out of time. We haven't seen any what we call like a safety signal that's like popping up that patients with bleeding disorders are at any different risk than the general population. There was initially a lot of concern because, or let me restate that. So I think we even talked about this on our last group call about the coagulopathy associated with COVID. So which traditionally we think in the States especially that coagulopathy translates to bleeding risk. And what it seems like more is that it, and because we think about coagulopathy and infection as like disseminated intravascular coagulations, which means that you like activate all your clotting system and use up all those proteins, and then you're both prone to bleeding and clotting, and it kind of is this disrupted balance of your clotting system. And what it seems like more is that maybe the coagulopathy isn't a bleeding coagulopathy, it's a really a thrombosis or a blood clot coagulopathy, and that that people are seeing actually really high levels of clotting proteins, like really high levels of von Willebrand factor, or really high levels of fibrinogen, which is the kind of end glue that holds your clot together, and that these are making people at much higher risk for having blood clots in places like your veins, or your legs or your lungs, and that rather than it being a bleeding and clotting disorder, it's more of a clotting disorder, which we haven't seen like any increased rate of that in the bleeding disorder population, or any difference as of now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, Okay, well, I guess that was good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And it's also like we've enjoyed doing virtual visits. It's fun to see people like in their lives. I really like it. And like today I had virtual clinic and like 3 dogs appeared in my visits and I was pretty excited. And that was a really fun like bonus. So yeah, so thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Haley.
Yeah, for us that have to drive, it's really nice too to be able to be like, okay, I don't have to take the whole day to travel. So I'm not complaining, not yet anyway.
We all are worried that nobody will want to come see us ever again. So so hopefully we definitely want to make it easier for everybody, but someday we might need to see you in person.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
For those patients, Dr. Haley, for those patients that were hard to get to come in for their comp visits, are you finding you're having more success getting them to see you virtually? Like, is this a way of the future for those hard to see patients?
That's a good question. I don't know if we have like that data at this time, but I think hopefully it makes it easier and we can hopefully get everybody access to their care. And I think it does offer a really nice way to get people seen, especially who live far, far away. And I think we've like finally figured out how to get like PTs on their virtual visits too. So that's pretty exciting. It just, as long as we don't have to keep changing platforms, we'll hopefully be okay.
Okay, thank you so much for all that. So I'll go ahead and take over for a minute. I just wanted to share with you guys as far as what the changes are for us virtually at the foundation. We're still going through our change of being, Hemophilia Foundation of Oregon to Pacific Northwest Bleeding Disorders. So that's going to be coming up soon. So in the meantime, it's just we go through both. We're in the office on Wednesdays. Madonna and I have decided to go in. Her office is in like behind this glass, and so we keep the door open and mine's around. So I mean, we can hear each other, but with all these changes with virtual, it's really nice to have somebody to bounce something off of or get these ideas. And I started in March, right before this all happened, and so my creative train of thought goes way this way and Madonna's still going this way. So every now and then she's got to reel me in to make sure we're going to the same place. So it kind of makes it nice to just bounce things off. But so we are in on Wednesdays. We were looking at starting full time back into the office the Monday after 4th of July. Yes, I was stumbling with July, believing that we're already there. But things are changing and we might be pushed back a couple weeks. So that's just kind of hit or miss, but we will be coming in periodically and stick to those Wednesdays. Let's see, for activities going on, most of our events have been virtual, and like we started this with at the beginning, we're doing the Thursday nights. For a chance for connections, because we aren't having our connections groups, getting the information out that we need. We're doing the Tuesdays at 2 with our PTs to get some exercise going on. The teen group is starting to meet again for the summer, so they do a Monday hangout, so just to kind of keep them together. I think attendance is low, but I kind of expected that as they're just finishing up with school, and a lot of them were doing Zoom platforms for school, so they don't transition to understanding that it could be fun, and so they are doing that. Our walk did go virtual, so we are doing our walk virtually. It's still scheduled for September 19th. Kind of slow on letting everything out because we're waiting on NHF, because the majority of the walks across the nation are going virtual. So with that, they have decided, they changed their whole platform, and we're releasing a whole thing for how that's going to work and what that's going to look like. And so I wanted to make sure that we had their incentive program matched with ours, because they did release that they're doing a national walk day, which is going to be on October 10th. We thought about switching over to that date, but we have our insurance summit that day. So we are going to stick with the 19th, and we'll use the the National Walk Day as a day to highlight some of the things that we've done for our walk, maybe do some recognition, show some videos or photos of what people have, what they did for their walk. So we will still use it as a point to be on live and show different videos, but we will be holding our official walk day will be the 19th, but because it's virtual, you know, it's kind of walk when it's for you. But I'm really excited because we kind of started and then we got stopped, and then we went to the zoo, and then I was super excited about the zoo, and then that got canceled. And then so I was kind of like, okay, what do we do now? But I'm really excited now the way we're going to do things and the incentive program we have. And we started last year with, we had a commemorative pin that we have for the walk for the 2019. And then this year we did one, I'm going to show it to you because I think it's super cute. So this is our cute little pin. It's a little blood drop. He's got his toilet paper roll and his face mask. It is going to be the first thing that comes out with our new name on it. So the idea is to do them, release them as every year, and we'll have them on lanyards. So like, here's my lanyard. I have last year's pin and this year's pin. So we'll be doing that, kind of like the Disney thing, how you collect the pins as you go along. So we'll have a design, and you know, maybe next year we can have a contest to have someone design the pin. So I think that'll be really fun. And so we'll be designing that walk and having it through some different things Madonna and I are going to be putting together over the next couple weeks, and have that out on the 27th. And like I said, some of it is just kind of waiting, as I have a meeting tomorrow with the National Walk Committee and what they've decided and what they're doing. So just want to make sure that we're offering our walkers a full package and not like partial of what we're doing and we miss out on what they're doing. So we want to combine them both. So that's going to be a fun thing to do. So I encourage everybody to have a walk team. So if you're not signed up, you can get signed up. So with that, like I said, then we have the insurance summit that we have it for October 10th. Not sure how that's looking, if it's going to be full virtual or partial, depending on what, you know, what the regulations are, what we're looking at that particular point. So I think that we have camp coming up, camp registration. I don't know how many people are involved with that, but we can accept applications for camp all the way through the 21st. So that's this weekend. So if you miss the soft closing of registration, we do have it open for the week. So if anybody knows anybody that is not registered yet, please make sure that they get registered, because there's going to be a switch going to virtual, but I'll tell you, I'm sure it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Again, I think when we were making the phone calls to a lot of the families, were like, oh, my kid is just totally virtualed out, you know, and they need a break. And I'm like, but they're going to get a break, because this camp's not until the end of July, and that's when they'll be ready to reconnect with people and do something fun. Because even in a regular summer, I don't know about you guys, but my kids were like, oh yeah, gung ho, you know, and 4 weeks into it, they're like, okay, now what can we do? Now what can we do? We'll go play with your friends down the street. I did already. So I think just making sure that they know they're going to have that break, and then they're going to be ready to connect with new friends and new people that they have been connected with every summer, and be able to want to see them. So I think it's just that little lull in that. So that's a good thing. So just really, those are the things we don't know for the fall, what we're doing. You know, we're still trying to figure out, you know, are we keeping this? Are we not keeping this? What are we doing? Officially, though, we did cancel the auction for this year, so there will be no Shooting for the Stars this year. So that's going to be real hard hits. So pushing the walk. And it was just a matter of, you know, how would that look? What would we do in the MAC Club? You know, how do we do safe distancing and still be able to have fun? What kind of areas are we looking at? You know, so there was just a lot of things that came involved with that. Donations, some of the companies that, you know, small businesses that donate, you know, how many of them are still in business and what are they going to be doing? So it was just we decided it was probably just better to say we're going to not do it this year and go forward. So that's what we're
Michelle, can I ask you a question real quick? So with that in mind, what's the plan, or has it been decided yet about the annual meeting?
That has not. We have not decided on that. We're looking at both aspects of everything, but we are pushing that out towards like an October type thing, hoping to see how things go. We're trying to wait on that as much as we can. The reason we couldn't wait on the auction is there is too much of that goes into an all-year planning event as far as getting everything going and then trying to look at, you know, what kind of attendance would we have. We did talk to the board about it, you know, and a lot of people were just saying, you know, I wouldn't let my parents come, or I don't know that that would be safe for things. So that one was kind of, we had to make the decision because that planning aspect, from getting donations to paying for food and all that stuff had to come pretty close here, and it just wasn't sitting right. It wasn't comfortable for us to make that change if it would be worth what we were putting into it, to if we would get that out of, and did, you know, would we expect that from people to show up? You know, if we get another wave or something like that, you know, how do we justify that that's, you know, what we want to do? So
Right.
that was really hard, but yeah.
Okay. And Dr. Haley, can I ask you a quick question? You said you're doing virtual comprehensive visits through the summer. Is that like through Labor Day or into September, or do you guys have a date?
Right now it's through the end of August, but towards the beginning or middle of August, we'll decide if we extend that longer. Mostly so we can, I think it's just like predicting what the clinic space can have capacity for, and then also so we don't end up scheduling and then rescheduling a million times. Yeah. I think that we have a long way to go before we're like back in full swing or even half swing. So I think whatever we can do, you know, I think since we have been able to convert our visits to virtual, it helps out the rest of the clinics that use the same physical spaces we do that haven't been able to convert to virtual. Like for like the speech therapists that use our same clinical space, like they can't do all of their assessments virtually. And so it allows them to use the space when we don't necessarily have to. So it's kind of a team sport in that physical space to try to make sure that all the patients that we serve across all the different specialties are able to get the care they need.
Yeah. Thank you.
So there was a couple other things I just wanted to highlight to you. Kevin reminded me that Blood Brotherhoods, they do a once a month hangout also. So that's another thing that we have going on. And then with that, with saying, you know, as we're talking about the auction and stuff, you know, fundraising, we only do 2 a year, and that's the auction and the walk. So for the walk, as you know, things have been kind of quiet and people are a little apprehensive about going out and doing fundraising. We started trivia nights, a family fun night that we've been doing once a month. We had our first one last month, and we're doing another one at the end of this month. Just, you know, pop culture trivia. When we were, you know, it is with the charge to come on. It's like $10 per device. It is, in fact, for a fundraiser, and we do raffle tickets for some basket raffles. And it's, you know, for anybody that wants to join, and if you want to have your team join and invite some friends as a way to hang out. And we had a lot of fun, and you know, we had a lot of laughs going on. And so I think that it worked out really good. So we're going to do a second one of those, and then we'll try and do once a month some kind of virtual fundraiser to just kind of generate that. And that way people that are having an issue and what they pay goes towards their walk team. So it's kind of a double thing. You get to have fun, but we also have put towards your walk team so that it counts towards that. So you are doing fundraising at the same time as having a good time. So we did start those. So And I think that's it that we have going on. A lot of unknowns, a lot of just trying to keep up with the times, trying to make sure that everybody's safe and everyone's doing what we need to do, but still trying to forge forward because we still have things that we have to get done. So yeah, so kind of exciting. And so that's all I had. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Pat.
Hi, everybody. My name is Pat Torrey. I know a lot of you, and I've had the honor of working with HFO now for close to 20 years. And I run a company called Gut Monkey. We're an adventure education company. And one of the things that we've gotten to do with HFO over those last 20 years is be part of Camp Tapawingo, as well as a variety of other things. And I'll be honest, I had an activity planned, and just kind of like how many people showed up and the size and the scope, I'm not going to do that because I don't think it's going to work well in this. But I pivoted. And so I'm going to try something really quickly here and just see if when I do this, I can share my screen. Do folks see a sea kayak and a mountain? Awesome. Okay, cool. So as Dr. Haley was talking, I was just thinking about this concept and figured I'd chat about it for just a minute, and we'll still do a little activity at the end. But so one of the things that we get to do at Gut Monkey is we sometimes take out backcountry expeditions, and this is a couple folks on a trip that we did in the San Juan Islands a few years ago. That's Mount Baker in the background, and we're paddling in these tandem kayaks from island to island in this really gorgeous space, and camping on a different island every night as we move around and navigate through these waters. And our very first trip was mainly participants from the Hemophilia Foundation of Oregon, because those are a lot of the folks that I knew, and we could drive there. And so we got up there, and there was this just really great question that got asked when somebody said, hey, so it looks like we've got, this big crossing to do, and it looks like it's going to take a little while. And I said, yeah, it's probably going to take a couple hours. And they were like, well, what if I get a bleed? Well, while I'm paddling. And I was like, being that we're an experiential education company and like to pose questions more than give answers, I was like, I don't know. What do you think you should do if you get a bleed when you're paddling? And they said, I don't know. I mean, typically I'd infuse. And I was like, great. And they were like, well, can you infuse in a sea kayak? And I was like, I don't know. Can you infuse in a sea kayak? And that became the beginning of something that's actually now spread around the country when with this group, we all got everybody in their kayaks and just tried to see if we could infuse in the cockpit of the kayak. And the folks that gave it a try were super successful. And it was really awesome to see that. And ever since then, on any of our backcountry trips, we've given folks the chance to get out, and if they'd like to, try an infusion while they're in their boat, either floating down a flat water river or in a sea kayak. And you can see right there, we're pretty close to land because that was the first time we tried it. But generally, we're kind of out there. We float, we raft up as a group and hold on to each other's boats and give it a go. And so I always love that example as a place of where somebody was like, gosh, I feel a little stuck. I'm not really sure what to do. But they kind of figured out how to get unstuck. And so I think in our lives, we get stuck a lot, and so the question then becomes, how do we get unstuck? And I'm pulling this out of a talk that goes for typically like an hour and a half, but we're going to do like 10 minutes of it, just so you know. When it says 1, you're only getting number 1. We're going to get there in a second, but we get stuck. And as you can see, I feel like this is a great example. I don't know how this happened, but it happens. We get stuck sometimes. So, and I'll share a quick story for those of you that know my brother, Joe. Some of you know him as Garma at camp. Get this. He and his wife are going to have a baby in like 2.5 minutes. Their due dates in like 3 days. So that's exciting for those of you that know. But Joe and I were down running a program in San Francisco years ago, and we drove by this bakery called Joey and Pat's. And we were like, oh my gosh, that's our names. We have to get that picture for mom. And so we stopped and we got the picture and we put it up. And I thought that I'd be real creative. And I put it on Facebook and wrote, so Joe and I finally did it. We moved to San Francisco and opened up our own bakery on Folsom. We've got hot cross buns on special today. Thanks for the photo. And I just left it at that, which probably sounds great and, you know, not a big deal, except that everybody who responded didn't respond with, ha, 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 that's funny. Well, I guess a couple up there did. Most of them said, congratulations, we'll miss you in hemophilia. It's been so great. And we basically sunk our business that day on Facebook. And we're like, what did we do? And we had to get really creative. I've had this photo up at a lot of keynotes, and it was just recently that I realized that I got stuck again. If you look at Kathy Torrey, that's my mom. And she wrote, and I just love the end, okay, guys, you should do this, but please put out an announcement that this isn't yours so that no one sues you. And dad says, nice buns. So I also thought, great, thanks, mom. That's been up in front of a lot of keynotes at this point. So anywho, there's lots of places to get stuck. And so I wanted to propose, I'm going to try to change one thing on my screen. Yeah, that kind of works. There we go. That sometimes when we get stuck, and again, you're only going to get number one. And so this is the piece of advice for tonight is when we get stuck, sometimes we got to do something, even if it's wrong. I used to build ropes courses for a living, and my co-builder and buddy Woody would always say that, let's go do something, even if it's wrong. And when he said that, I want to be clear, what he meant was, let's not go do something evil, or let's not go like break a set of like really clear rules. It meant, let's go do something, even if we don't have the answer, and we're probably going to make some mistakes along the way. And that's okay, because that's how we're going to figure it out. That's how we're going to learn. And I thought about that as Dr. Haley was talking, because there is this interesting piece. I started just thinking about this particular point in this talk in a time where we have a whole new set of rules that we really need to follow to preserve public health. And at the same time, we have to be really creative to figure out how to live our lives differently. So there's like this dichotomy going on of places where it's going to be important to like get creative and think outside of the box and do things differently. And at the same time, like there are some rules, and we're, you know, if we're going to be taking care of each other, we're going to have to be thoughtful of those. And so just a couple of tips along the lines of how do we do something, just do something. And I think that often what happens is we have analysis paralysis. There's just so many options that we just don't know what to do. Or like, it's just too much, and people spend all their time planning and then they don't do something. And I think that, again, a plan is really important. Very recently, we were walking, actually there was a protest that came really close to our house, and we were like, this is an important piece of history. Our girls should probably see this. 2 years old, 6 years old. So we went out to look, and then they were walking to a park close to my house, and we all had masks on, but then my 2-year-old kept taking her mask down, and I kept putting it up, and my wife's like, why are you even bothering? I looked, it was a paper mask. She had eaten this whole part of the mask, and I was like, that's not very helpful. And then I realized I was highly stressed at that moment. I'm like, management of a toddler in a pandemic during a protest is maybe a stressful thing. And I felt very much like I had this analysis paralysis going on. And then I just had to do something. And I was like, you know what? We're going to go over there. We're going to look, and then we're going to go home. And that's what we did. And sometimes we just have to be able to make those choices when it gets stressful, when we have so many options for ourselves. And so I don't know if anybody can name the movie. It's old. It's an oldie but a goodie. Oh, there we go. I see some head nods. Oh, yeah, I Shrunk the Kids. Very good.
Yep.
The Heath brothers, one is a professor at Stanford. The other one is a researcher at Duke, or maybe it's flip-flop. They write a whole series of sort of like pop psychology books, and one of them is called Switch. And in Switch, they suggest that when you are out there and you're trying to make a change, it can be very helpful to do this thing called shrinking the change, taking something that initially can kind of feel big and make it small, because your brain does a lot better when it's looking at something smaller. And so If you're looking at like, I don't know, going to college or buying a house or some other big decision, rather than just looking at the whole thing at once, breaking it up into small, more manageable pieces, and then taking on just one of those at a time can make it a lot easier for us to start to conceptualize, how do I start doing this? And one thing that they suggested there is, it's great to snowball that change. We've all seen this in the cartoons where the snowball starts real small and it rolls down and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it hits the Wile E. Coyote at the bottom of the hill. Like, they suggest the same thing. Let it build momentum. So I don't know if anybody else deals with email inbox management, but mine, like, sometimes is fine and then sometimes totally blows up. And when I have to go in and like start tackling it, they would suggest start with the easy one. Start with the one where all you have to answer is yes, no, and start doing those, because all of a sudden you've responded to 6 and you build momentum for yourself, and it makes it easier to get going and have success there. I love this concept that they throw out around this idea of shrinking the change, which is the one song workout. Their suggestion is, and raise your hand if you have ever planned on working out and then found yourself still on the couch and actually not working out. Sometimes I like to like put my workout gear on, and then if I've put it on, when I'm going to bed, if I've still got it on and I haven't worked out, I get that like guilty feeling. Somewhere my mom like instilled that guilt can be a usable tool at some point for me. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Either way, sometimes I find myself having a hard time getting that workout in. But their suggestion is this: hey, the one song workout, you go and do your workout for one song. And at the end of that one song, you're done. That's it. You're done. What's really interesting about that is that 95% of people that do the one song workout at the end of one song, what do? They keep working out. Because the hard part of the workout is very often, and not to say that the workout is easy, but the hardest part is very often getting started. And it makes it easier to conceptualize that workout if we know this thing's over in 5 minutes anyway. And so the one song workout can be great. They also suggest the 5-minute room clean for anybody that's have that like room that they're just like, oh, it's going to take forever. Do it for 5 minutes. Because again, the hard part is getting started. This is the guy from that Lego movie, and at some point suggests like, we just got to throw out the instructions. Again, I'm not suggesting that in this space we get rid of like critical public health rules. But sometimes when we're in this space of trying to figure out what do I actually do with my world? What do I do with my life right here to start making changes when things are so different? It does require getting rid of those instructions and looking at different ways. And I love this photo from a National Geographic where this husky and this polar bear became friends for like a half an hour once. And luckily a photographer got a lot of pictures, but it's an incredibly vulnerable position. And it might seem like for the polar bear, but truly it's for the husky. And that it requires us to step into a place of being vulnerable when we do new things. And I think it's important for us to have compassion for ourselves in those moments, that that vulnerability can be challenging and that it's not going to feel just perfect. And then it might feel weird and scary, and that we should be ready for that and know that that's going to be part of that process. This is a great Calvin and Hobbes cartoon. I think it's the last one that Sam Waterston penned. It says, wow, it really snowed last night. Isn't it wonderful? Everything familiar, has a brand new look to it, a new year, a fresh, clean start. It's like having a big old white sheet of paper to draw on, a day full of possibilities. It's a magical world, Hobbes, old buddy. Let's go exploring. And I always love that, because I think that when we're in this space, that's what's required of us, is for us to really go exploring and try some of these new things, and kind of see how they're going to play out. Curious. Oh yeah. Question, cat people out there, raise of hands, cat people. Oh, we got big cat people. Okay. Dog people, more dog people. I see some no hands, tarantula people, chameleon people. Okay, we'll see. But anyway, with our, I heard somebody share this once, and I'm more of a dog person, that a cat is a combination of a teddy bear and a cactus, which is why I am more of a dog person. And I share that because I also heard somebody say shortly before my wife, Amanda, went into labor with our daughter, Maggie, that a woman in labor can be a combination of a goddess, and this was their warning to me, a Game of Thrones dragon. And I was like, oh, that's helpful. Thank you. Oh, good. And that's Amanda with our little Maggie when she was just so little. And it was interesting because I heard that, and I had decided before Maggie was born that I was going to try to be really helpful. I was going to be that guy that can like be in there and do whatever is like additionally needed. So I had like learned massage techniques, and I learned essential oil protocols, and I was ready to rock and roll. And Amanda was in labor for 72 hours. And during that 72 hours, for a chunk of at least, I'd say like 30 hours, she didn't speak. She went like totally internal and just shut off the world. And I, as most of you know who know me, am very extroverted and gregarious and like talking all the time. I just kind of came over and was like, I didn't know what to do. All of my plans went out the window, and I felt in that very vulnerable space, like I need to do something, but I don't know what to do. I have to try something, even if it's wrong. And so it meant kind of coming over and sometimes walking over and putting a hand on her shoulder. And sometimes her eyes would open, and clearly it said, you should go away now. And then I would very gently walk away slowly and carefully from that scene. And then it also meant that other times I needed to do the exact same thing, knowing I might not be welcome there. And sometimes she'd open her eyes and be very happy that I was there. And so it required this constant vigilance of trying something, even if I didn't know it was going to be right, so that I could possibly be there to help if that's what was needed at that time. And that can be scary, and that can feel vulnerable, especially when you don't want to mess up. But it's what's required in that. And so I often ask people in the bleeding disorder community a lot around this question of, back to the initial question of, can we infuse in this sea kayak? I often ask the question of, well, can you infuse here? And I'm curious for some nods, but often when I ask this of like large crowds, there's some people in the crowd that are like, no, and other people who are like, yeah, of course you can. And it's probably not ideal, but if you're willing to think outside of the box and think about a sterile field and consider the situation and evaluate how much you need to infuse at that point, that could certainly be a place where you could infuse. And then I like to ask, well, could we infuse here? And it's so strange right now to see people on an airplane so close without masks on. But this is a slide from a couple of years ago. So there it is. And I think we all know, of course, you can infuse here. And again, there might be questions asked or things that you've got to do or explanations that you might want to or feel like you need to make to somebody. Or again, as we know now, like maybe even more so than the horse stable, a sterile field might need to be created, and do our best to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. And I think this is a trail that I've hiked not too long ago. Can we infuse here? Like, this seems less than ideal with steep, steep land on either side of our trail, but we can do it. And these are places where we often need to think outside of the box when it comes to our world around managing a bleeding disorder. But there's also the reality that we are now faced with daily, not just how do I live my life, how do I manage my bleeding disorder, but how do I live in this world that seems to be very, very much different than it was a few months ago, but also with rapid change. I think I've heard more in the last few months. It changed the statement, it changes every day, more so than I've heard in the last few years. And so just for fun, before we close, I'm going to give us one opportunity to do something just a little bit silly, because it wouldn't be a gut monkey thing if we didn't somehow do something active. And so I'm going to end this, and I'm going to stop sharing that. Hopefully that stopped. And I'm going to take a little step back. I'm going to encourage you. You don't have to stand up, but I always feel a little bit better doing this standing up. And it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy, and like a lot of things that I ask people to do, It's going to start out simple, so bear with me. So all we're going to do is count to 6. But when we count to 6, we're going to move our left hand. Take your left hand, shake it out so you can remember which is your left hand. You're going to take your left hand, and you're going to go up, down, 3, 4, 5, 6. That was great. I think practice is helpful with these things. I promise I'll only do it the second time. Here we go together. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Done. Great. Take that left hand, put it away. Take your right hand, shake it out. Right hand is going to be slightly different. We're going to go up on the 1, and then we're going to half mast on the 2, down on the 3, up on the 4, half mast on the 5, down on the 6. So what that's going to look like all together is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Great. So that everybody can join in, practice. Here we go. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's possible that Dr. Haley just like knocked her curtains down. That's great. All right, perfect. Excellent. All right. So we often get asked in this world to take things and combine them and put them together. And I think we know now that multitasking is actually not really serving us all that well, but often we feel like we need to do it. I'm going to challenge you to do it right now. We're just going to take those 2 things that I taught you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and put them together. And it looks like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here we go. Everybody together. We've got this. And go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nice. And what I love about that is that some people get in there and they're just like, 1, 2. No. And they just shake their head. But the folks that are in that space that are saying, I'm going to do something even if it's wrong, they're the ones that are like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes! Nailed it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call fake it till you make it. It means we got to try something, even if it's wrong, even if we don't know how it's going to go, so that we can get some momentum, so that we can get moving. And that's your challenge. Your challenge is to get out there, and in this world of unknowns and things rapidly changing, try something. Again, there are rules. There are things about our health and public safety that we do need to follow, but in other spaces, do something, even if it's wrong. Even if you don't know what the outcomes are, it can serve us in getting outside of ourselves, getting outside the box, and coming up with new solutions. So hopefully the pivot worked and that was helpful. Thank you for joining in. I hope you got a little giggle from some of the stories. It's really good seeing your faces. And I hope to see you all in some capacity at another event or at camp. And if you've signed up for camp, you should call all the people you know and make sure they've signed up for camp, because it's a little bit different in people's head, but push them because it's going to be good. I'll turn it back over to you, Michelle.
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, because that's what I'm doing right now on the Zoom. I'm going to fake it till I make it, because it's going to take me a couple more times and I'll have it down. But no, thank you guys so much for being with us tonight. Dr. Haley, thank you for answering questions. And, you know, it's going back to work, trying to think of these new things. It's always nice to have some encouragement, some insight, and just some safety precautions for us to look at, because those are the things that cause us to be a little bit anxiety ridden, the unknown or what we don't know. So we have to rely on each other and bounce things off each other to get to those comfort places. And that's what we're doing with these virtual calls. So I do appreciate you guys all for being here with us tonight. Again, we will be back again next week with virtual campfire. And during the week, we have other things going on. It's all on our website if you want to. And again, camp, definitely get those kiddos signed up, because they'll so want it. It comes the end of July. And walk, if you got to all walk, we got to keep going, right? And so I encourage you to sign up, and it'll be a lot of fun, I promise. So everybody have a good night, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thanks, Pat.
Bye, everyone. See ya.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Michelle. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye, Donna.